There are many steps that organizations can take to better establish in law that they are taking the appropriate steps to strive to be secure. No organization will be perfectly secure, but it can take a lot of good steps and it can document that it's doing the right kinds of things. An important step that I like to see out of an organization is to have a certificate signed by an appropriate officer with respect to cybersecurity. So the appropriate officer would often be someone identified as something like a Chief Information Security Officer. This certificate is not something that I made up myself. It's something that I see in a number of different places in cybersecurity law. So an example place is in FISMA. FISMA means Federal Information Security Modernization Act. It applies to federal government agencies, and it requires that the person who's identified as at the level of a CISO in a federal government agency periodically sign some kind of a certificate that says, to my knowledge, my organization is taking the appropriate steps for cybersecurity. Another example of a law requiring a certificate by someone like a Chief Information Security Officer is the New York Department of Financial Services cybersecurity regulations. Those regulations require certain financial institutions in New York to have a signed certificate from someone like a CISO that essentially says that my organization is following the requirements for cybersecurity here in the state of New York. But these requirements for certificates by a CISO are not broadly required all across the cybersecurity legal landscape around the world. I argue that many organizations are doing themselves a compliance favor if they do get someone like their CISO to sign some kind of a certificate. Now, precisely what words would be used in the certificate could vary from one situation to the next, but something that I find appealing would be a signed certificate by a CISO that says something like, to my knowledge, my organization applies professional teamwork to cybersecurity. And so in effect, that CISO is saying, I feel comfortable about what we're doing. I'm not guaranteeing we're perfect. I'm not saying we're not going to be breached. No, anybody can be breached. And I would be a fool to try to say, says the CISO, that we're not going to get breached. On the other hand, I can feel comfortable as a CISO certifying that I think that we are applying something like professional teamwork. I do sense we have a professional team and we're putting the good kinds of resources that are necessary to support a professional team in the very rapidly changing, very dangerous world in which we live in cybersecurity today. But just because a CISO might sign a certificate like this doesn't mean the CISO is saying, we don't have problems. The CISO could fully acknowledge, yeah, we've got problems, and therefore, even as I sign this certificate of professional teamwork, for example, I also attach an appendix to the certificate. And the appendix might give a brief outline of major topics on which we need to improve. We know we need to do better on employee awareness, for example. Okay, that would be something that would be identified in the appendix to the certificate. So in effect, there's a certificate where somebody is putting their reputation on the line, but they're also acknowledging, we'll never be perfect. We're not perfect now, and we don't want someone like the board of directors or regulators to think that somehow we have come to some conclusion that we are perfectly secure. No, that's not realistic. That's not where we are. I teach a 5-day course at the SANS Institute. The name of that course is Legal 523, The Law of Data Security and Investigations. You can learn more about that at sans.org. You can also learn more about me and my practice of law at benjaminwright.us. Here in this video, I've given some ideas that can help to address legal compliance or legal risk. Obviously, through this video, I'm not your lawyer, and if you need legal advice, you need to go hire a lawyer to give you specific legal advice. This video is only for public education.